Hey everyone, Mark Richter here. Um, so the event tonight, we had a couple of audio challenges right at the beginning, so you missed my brilliant introduction about the whole presentation. I didn't want to trash the entire recording, so I cut that part out, and then we pick it up as Priti and the rest of the consulting team introduces themselves. But I didn't want to just cold open into that, so I figured I'd just record a brief introduction for the event. So first off, thank you for watching this. If you participated live, thank you so much for coming. This is the first time we've ever done an event like this. It was purely student led, suggested by my son. It was not an official Stevens event. But Red Hat was super excited to meet some of the students and to start what will hopefully be a very productive relationship between Red Hat and Stevens. For those of you who don't realize, Red Hat has an office in Manhattan right across the river. When we're not in the middle of a global pandemic, the Stevens students will be invited to attend our monthly Red Hat user group meetings where they can learn about technologies, network, and who knows, they might end up putting on the fedoras themselves. Yay. All right. So, briefly, who am I? Again, my name is Mark Richter. I go by Uncle Mark on all of our internal chat platforms. I've been with Red Hat since 2015, but I've been in the IT industry much longer than that, right? Uh, and in my day job at Red Hat, I'm what's called a technical account manager. Uh, some companies pay Red Hat, and I give those companies advice on how to use our products and software. I help them with support cases, and basically, I'm their IT person inside of Red Hat. It's really pretty flippin' cool. Uh, Linux and open source and Red Hat have always been really important to me, and the chance to work for Red Hat, I couldn't be in a better place. It's honestly the best job I've ever had. So anyway, without any further ado, I'm going to stop babbling and virtually pass the mic over to Priti as she introduces herself and the rest of the young Red Hat consultants introduce themselves to you. Enjoy the rest of the presentation.
That's me. Hi, everybody. My name is Preeti Kumar. I am a CLP manager. We'll go into what the CLP is later, but it stands for Consulting Launch Program. I've been working with open source since 2009 when I was in college. Loved open source, and when I was looking to figure out where I wanted to work, I really wanted to get paid to work on open source. So I joined Red Hat right out of college. Been here since 2017, so a little over 7 years now. I started as an associate consultant, which we'll also talk more about what that means later. And I've been through 5 different career paths, all within consulting, and I'm still here. I don't remember what else was on my slide because Mark's got something else pulled up. But okay. Yeah, so like I said, I joined for the open source, and I've definitely stayed for the people and the culture. My favorite thing about working here has always been the people I get to work with, all the cool ideas they have, how much fun we have working together, and that everyone is very open and friendly. And my fun fact for the day is that I've reached level 82 in Tetris.
Hey everyone, my name is Dhruv Agarwal. So I graduated from Purdue in May of last year, and I graduated as a computer engineer. I'm based out of New Jersey right now. I'm an associate consultant, as Preeti said. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but that's where I started. I started right out of college. I joined with the 2020 August cohort, and I interned at a startup called Valines Partners, and then I also interned at AT&T. Some of my hobbies include aviation, cooking, although I'm not very good at it, traveling, Netflix, and basketball. My fun fact is I have a black belt in Taekwondo, and the tech that I focus on at Red Hat is OpenShift. So excited to be here. And Mark, you can go to the next slide.
All right, so we were having some audio problems, but I think you guys should be able to hear me now because I should be coming through a different microphone. Can you guys hear me now? Okay, yeah. So that recording's going to be a little stupid maybe, but we'll see what happens. All right. Dahlia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dahlia Cater. I am also a recent graduate from the CLP program, but I came from the University of Texas at Austin, and I majored in biomedical and electrical engineering there. My past experience was actually, it's kind of been all over the place. I had experience in hardware engineering at IBM, and my time at IBM kind of led me to Red Hat. I was interning there during the acquisition, and it was that combined with, this open source and everything that just got me really interested in Red Hat and eventually working there. Just like I said, I just finished the consulting launch program. And right now I'm working on a project in the oil and gas industry, and it's focused on OpenShift infrastructure. And outside of Red Hat, my hobbies include hanging out at coffee shops. I love playing tennis, hiking, really anything outdoors. And then escape rooms are fun. Running, yeah, just anything that will get me out of the house.
I've run from bears while camping. Well, not really, but
I've never done that.
okay. And Kinsey.
Hello, everyone. My name's Kinsey Ness. I just graduated, not just, like a year ago. Graduated from UNC Chapel Hill with a bachelor's in computer science. I interned at Fidelity Investments, like between my junior and senior year, focused on like web dev for that internship. And then I also just completed the consulting launch program, and Dolly and I are actually on the same project right now in the oil and gas industry. My hobbies include scuba diving, going to concerts, specifically rock concerts, and UNC basketball. And then my favorite thing about Red Hat is the culture, the people, everything around that.
All right. Thanks, Kinsey. So what I do want to do here is I want to keep this a pretty open discussion. So if anyone has a burning question during the presentation part, feel free to jump in. We will have a Q&A section specifically, and I can't see the Discord chat. So, but if the other Red Hatters can see that, or if Josh can see that, if someone types a question in Discord, that would be handy as well. But let's start talking about this whole free software thing. And it actually, funny enough, all began with a printer. Side note, I flippin' hate printers. They're my least favorite computer thing. But open source, free software all began with a printer. There was a gentleman named Richard Stallman who worked back in the MIT Media Lab in the 80s. And what happened is that Xerox and other companies like Xerox would give universities equipment to try and build relationships and whatnot. And Xerox gifted the lab a shiny new laser printer. Now, today you can go to Walmart and buy a laser printer for a couple $100. In the 1980s, laser printers were $5,000, $6,000, $10,000. So this was not a cheap piece of hardware, right? And what would happen is every so often the laser printer would jam. And the laser printer was networked to Unix machines and serving multiple systems and whatnot. So you would send off your print job, go get some coffee, go chat with your buddies, and then go to retrieve your job, only to find out the laser printer had jammed and no one knew because the software didn't notify users that there was a problem. So jobs would back up and things were just a mess. So Richard Stallman decided, well, if I can just look at the source code for the printer driver, I can add an alert that when the printer jams, we'll know and we can fix it. So he went to get the source code from Xerox and they said, no, you can't have that. And Richard Stallman went, are you kidding me? Why don't you give me the source code? We own the printer. We need the code for the printer driver so I can fix it. So he shocked Pikachu-faced. And it actually threw him into a bit of a rage. And so he did the only logical thing to do at that point, and that was he decided he was going to write a free Unix. He decided that software that people relied on was too important to be locked away behind a single company. And Unix at the time was one of the more powerful operating systems, so he decided he was going to create a Unix-compatible operating system. That's actually the GNU project. GNU is an acronym that means GNU's not Unix. So it's a recursive acronym. It contains itself. So you comp sci people are now groaning a little bit. And what Richard Stallman came up with was the 4 freedoms of free software. And the 4 freedoms go like this, and they're in the upper corner. The first freedom, which is freedom 0, is when you have software, you have the freedom to run that program as you wish for any purpose. That freedom is essentially the freedom that all the other freedoms are based upon. The second freedom is you have the freedom to study how the program works and change it so it does your computing as you wish. That's freedom 1. Now, for you to be able to do that, you need access to the source code. Now, source code, for those of you who aren't familiar with the term, computers, believe it or not, don't speak in human languages. At their base, they actually speak in something called binary, which is a series of 1s and 0s. So when someone writes a computer program, they will often write it in a programming languages such as C or Python or Ruby, and then another program called either an interpreter or a compiler will take that source code and convert it into machine code so the computer can run it. So when you buy a program nowadays, you're often just buying the binary machine code, not the source code. Well, to study the program and how it really works, you need the source code. So that's freedom number 1. Freedom number 2 is you have the freedom to redistribute copies so that you can help others, right? So if I have access to this software and my friend needs the software, I should be allowed to give them a copy. And then once you've made changes to the software, you should have the freedom to distribute copies of your modified version to others. This is freedom 3. By doing this, you're benefiting the entire community with your changes. And obviously to do that, you need access to the source code. So those 4 freedoms there, Richard Stallman wasn't saying that existing software, that it would be okay to take it and steal it. He was saying that when you write software, you should intentionally make it so that the software falls under these freedoms. And he started to build, and he and his team started to build this Unix compatible operating system. And he did manage to create a whole bunch of tools, some compilers, some linkers, editors, things like that. But he was missing a pretty critical component the entire time. That's right, he was missing a kernel. Ba-dum-bum, dad joke. No, actually not that kind of kernel. He was missing the type of kernel that is the most important part of an operating system. It is the core program that controls the hardware on the system, that makes sure that programs are running properly. It basically makes everything work together. In Star Wars, it would be like the Force, right? And his GNU OS, they planned a kernel, what was called the mock kernel, but they did not make very quick progress on it. And fortunately, at the same time that GNU was being built, there was a young computer scientist student in Finland named Linus Torvalds. And he couldn't afford to buy his own Unix operating system. He worked with a Unix-like OS called Minix, but it was too expensive for him. So like any computer nerd, well, he couldn't afford it, so he was going to write his own. And he had developed a kernel using a bunch of the GNU tooling because the GNU tooling was free. And one of his fellow nerds dubbed his kernel Linux after him because Linus, Unix, Linux, bam. So, because what had happened here is that all of the GNU project that Richard Stallman and his people were working on, as well as the Linux kernel that Linus wrote, were released under a software license called the GNU Public License, or the GPL. And the GNU up there is their logo. And so, disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer, right? But here's essentially what the GNU Public License says. So if you release software under the GPL, it has the 4 freedoms we talked about already. If you sell GPL software, and you can absolutely sell GPL software, you must provide the source code if the customer wants the source code. You are legally obligated to give them the source code if asked. Now, if you modify software or build new software that's under the GPL, you must also provide the source code for your changes if someone asks you. So if you take existing software, make changes to it, and distribute the machine code for that, and it's under the GPL, you have to also provide the source code. And most programmers who use the GPL, they just get in the habit of bundling the source code automatically. They don't even wait to be asked. But that, if you're sitting here thinking, wow, that means that Josh Richter can buy a copy of the software under GPL and then give it away for free to all of Stevens, both morally and legally, you're absolutely right. That's a true statement. And this is really important because Richard Stallman and his organization, which became the Free Software Foundation, look at software as a moral issue. It's, think of how important electronics, digital stuff, computers are today. And so Stallman and the Free Software Foundation truly believe that in the best world, free software is the best way to do this. All right. So we have the GNU project. It doesn't have its own kernel, but it works with the Linux kernel. This led to something called Linux distributions. So this is where nerds got together and they took Linus's kernel. It's Linus and Linus. There's arguments over the proper way to say his name. I think technically it's Linus, but since I'm a dirty American, I just keep calling him Linus all the time. My apologies. But a Linux distribution is essentially the Linux kernel. Operating system libraries, which are things that non-nerds really don't care about, various tooling, including editors, compilers, and other things that let you make more software, plus applications, like document editors or a word processor or Cuphead, whatever. All those put together make a Linux distribution. And those go by all sorts of interesting, cool names. You might have heard of Ubuntu. That's one of the more popular ones. Arch Linux is if you like to flex. Arch Linux is a really popular nerd one. Debian's an old stable distribution that Ubuntu actually came from. Yeah, because what'll happen is someone will make a Linux distribution, somebody else will be like, that distribution is almost exactly like I want it, but not quite, so they'll take it and they'll do what's called forking it. They'll make a copy of it, and because it's under GPL, they'll make their changes and then redistribute it under a different name, because you can, right? And then on that list, you recognize the name Red Hat, right? Red Hat Enterprise Linux and Fedora. Remember those two distributions. So that's kind of a brief history of the free software movement that started with a printer and led to Linux as we kind of know it today. So let's take a little side trip into the exciting world of enterprise IT, because that's really where the folk at Red Hat, we swim in this pool. What the heck is EIT, Enterprise IT? So I pulled this from an article on the internet. And of course, if it's on the internet, it's true. But the really boring definition is that enterprise IT is hardware and software, and it's designed to meet the demands of a large organization. All right? And that's a very relative term. What makes a large organization? I would say that Stevens, the university, would be a fairly large organization. Not as big as some, but bigger than a mom and pop shop or a smaller company. And what an enterprise wants is they want hardware and software that is secure. They want it to be stable. They want it to have good performance. When a customer wants to use it, it should be available. Think of every time you've ever tried to buy something on the web or use your credit card and it doesn't work and how that puts you into a rage. Well, that's enterprise IT not doing its job. There are no formal standards that you need to conform to be enterprise class. When you're buying enterprise IT stuff, you need to basically make sure that it can meet your org's specific needs. All right, so what's that have to do with anything? Well, here's the thing. If you use or have ever used a credit card, if you have a social media account, if you've ever flown on an airline, if you've ever been in the hospital, if you've ever stayed in a major hotel, if you ever text with your phone, if you ever order food using an app, if you've ever watched The Mandalorian, then whether you realize it or not, you rely on enterprise IT. And here's the kicker. You've probably used Red Hat software and you didn't even know it. This little infograph on the top basically says these are the percentage of certain organizations that use our software. And you'll notice those are all 100%. Woohoo! So let's talk about Red Hat as a company. We were founded back in 1993 by a gentleman named Bob Young as the ACC Corporation. They did mail order computer stuff, like certain Linux distributions and hats and T-shirts and things like that. Bob had a friend named Mark Ewing, and Mark Ewing created the Red Hat Linux distro in the year 1994, and he named it after his grandfather's lacrosse hat that he used to wear when he was at Carnegie Mellon University. He worked in the computer lab, and he became known as the guy with the red hat. You asked him questions when your computer didn't work. And so he named his Linux distribution after that. So they joined forces in 1995 and then renamed ACC Corporation to Red Hat. Flash forward to 2019, IBM acquires Red Hat for $34 billion. So Red Hat technically is part of IBM now. You may have heard of them, but we operate as a completely independent unit inside of IBM's hybrid cloud division. To be honest, I don't even think of myself as an IBM employee. The only time I ever think about that is when I look at the stock price, because Red Hat doesn't have any stock anymore. It's all under IBM. So what does Red Hat actually do? Well, our current CEO, Paul Cormier, has stated this. Red Hat is an enterprise software company, remember enterprise IT, with an open source development model. So what that means is that we take software that is being worked on by what are called upstream communities. And upstream communities are basically groups of nerds who are passionate about a particular piece of software. And they work on projects, and these projects are under some sort of open source license, usually the GPL, sometimes the BSD license, sometimes the Apache license. There's actually a bunch of licenses, but the GPL is the most popular. And anyway, they create these projects. And what Red Hat will do is they will take these upstream projects and occasionally turn them into products. So there's a Linux distribution called Fedora. That is the upstream Linux distribution that Red Hat does not own. Now we have people who work at Red Hat that work on Fedora. Some of them work on Fedora full time. And we have donated, I believe, hardware to the Fedora project and supported them. But we don't actually have any control directly over them. Fedora is legitimately owned by everybody because it's open source. But what we do is every couple of years we take Fedora, the current version, and we say, yeah, this is what we're going to use for our next Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And we fork it. Remember I used that term fork. And we take it and we make it, we harden it, we secure it, we take out the stuff we don't want, and then we turn that into Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And then we do something absolutely friggin' crazy. We take the source code for all of our hard work, put it on our FTP server, and anybody who wants it can take it. Holy crap! How do we make money? How did we become a company that was bought for $34 billion if we're doing all this work and we're just giving the source code away for free? I'm glad I asked myself that. What happens is big companies, and they're our real target, not the little shops, not individuals, big companies will purchase subscriptions to Red Hat Enterprise Linux and other products. What that gets them is support. When the New York Stock Exchange has a problem with its Linux systems, they want someone on a support bridge immediately with the ability to issue a hot fix to address the problem. So companies will pay good money for support contracts. We provide certified updates directly through our servers that they can patch their RHEL systems from and know that the updates are vetted by us and fully tested. We will give them security alerts and let them know, hey, there's a vulnerability in the code. Here's the patch for it. They have full access to our knowledge articles and whatnot. And then we start to offer services like something called Red Hat Insights, which is software as a service where your servers can call back to Red Hat with their configurations. We can run it through a pretty complex server farm, and we can say, hey, this is configured wrong. You could change this, or you could apply this patch and things would be better. So companies will purchase subscriptions for our products. Companies and individuals will pay us for training and certifications. Red Hat certifications are very valuable in the industry. Red Hat Consulting Services, the other Red Hatters on the phone, you can hire them for an engagement with your company to help you develop a project for your company. And we repeat this model for all of our products. So we basically make billions of dollars a year on software that you can have for free, because what you're really paying for is service and support. So what if you're a Stevens student, you're a duck, and you want to be wearing a fedora? How's that happening? What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop talking as much, and I'm going to let my friends talk, and they'll tell me when to advance. All right. So who's chatting?
I'm starting. So yeah, thank you, Mark, for explaining a lot of the background, right? Where Red Hat started and so much about Linux. So if you hit the next slide, Mark. So yeah, this is kind of just summing up what Mark said, right? So more than 90% of the Fortune 500 companies use Red Hat products and solutions. And from those, 100% airlines, telecommunications, banks, right? Mark went over that. So you can see the amount of and it's not only in the US, right? We're very global as well. So 105 offices across the world in 40 countries, more than 40 countries. We have 16,000 plus employees, and we are the first $3 billion open source company in the world, right? So that was just a quick recap. Now, Mark, if you hit the next slide. So open source culture, right? In the beginning, if I don't know who was here for the beginning, but Kinsey, Dahlia, Preeti, everyone, all of us said that we joined Red Hat for the culture or stayed for the culture, right? And the reason is because, I mean, for me personally, that's the reason why I came here, right? When deciding between all the places to work, the people at Red Hat were phenomenal. So the culture, we have over 1 million projects that we were working on. And so the first kind of sector of this is collaboration, right? The entire purpose of, so the culture of open source is the heart of its power. It requires collaboration and transparency to work, but the benefits are vast. So in collaboration, no matter what project you're on, you'll be working with other people, right? You'll never be thrown just under the boat saying, here, go work on this, go figure this out, right? And this entire idea of collaboration is what creates that entire open source culture mindset. Transparency is another key category. So with transparency, I'll give you an example. Like as Mark was saying, Paul, our CEO, we have a lot of town halls, and you can ask him any questions and they will answer it. You know, there's nothing hidden from you, which I think is a very cool thing, because that isn't something that's kind of typical in corporate America. And a lot of these bigger companies, that's not really a key concept. Another thing is we have something called a memo list, right? So with a memo list, anyone can write to anyone, right? There's a list that goes around, and you can send an email, and including Paul, right, our CEO and our top officials, all of these people look at it, and you may get a response from them as well. So I think that's super cool and neat. Now, shared problems are solved faster, right? So SC Linux was a project among the NSA and Red Hat, and others contributed to it. Linux, again, as Mark said, was an openly developed project. It was started by one man, but it was made successful by many, many people. OpenStack was another one that was developed. So all these things, I know when I was working on my last project, right, there were things that I didn't know. There were things that the other guy knew, right, the other consultant with me. And we collaborated, and we got to solve the problem much more faster than the client actually anticipated, right? And you deliver not only faster, but you deliver much better solutions as well. Working together creates standardization, right? So tools and techniques that work well become standards, right? So if you just look at open source, right, so much of it's on GitHub, right? Anyone can contribute to it, whether it's Fedora, Linux, RHEL. So working together definitely does create standardization. Next slide, Mark. So now, as Mark was saying, what if you want to join Red Hat, right? We'll go over the process in a little bit, but these are the 6 cities that you would get to choose from if you decide to join Red Hat. The reason we have these 6 cities is because that's where the majority of the Red Hat presence is. New York, Raleigh, Chicago, Austin, LA, DC. And if you were to get an offer, you could choose one of these cities and work out of there. That's kind of coming out of college. I know I wanted to be around a group of people that there was a ton of Red Hat presence, right? Just for networking, right? Coming out of college, you really want to network. So I think the reason why they focused it into these 6 cities is is for our pure benefit, right? So there's that. Another thing I would like to say is that Red Hat, like an example I'll give you about the open source mindset and the culture, right? A couple of months ago, we had a town hall, and there was a girl who interned here, and she actually spoke, right? She spoke in a town hall. There's 5,000, 6,000 people watching this. She got to speak about what she did at Red Hat throughout her summer internship with the CEO right there. So some of these things don't happen in your typical company. So I think Red Hat really diversifies and, kind of is a how do I say this? It's a unique case, right? You don't get to see this. You don't get to see this type of culture in many companies. So, and if Preeti or Kinsey or Dahlia, any of you would want to add to the culture, you guys are more than welcome to. Otherwise, we can keep going. So, Mark.
I think you did a great job explaining the culture. I would just like to add, I don't know if anyone who's listening or watching has read Leaders Eat Last, but I just read that book like a couple months ago, and every single thing that's in it, Red Hat does. And it's like how to create a great culture, how to be a good leader, like within the company, and Red Hat does all of it. It's amazing. Okay, you can go to the next slide, Mark, because I'm talking next. Okay, so who are we looking for? The answer is you. You can go to the next slide.
That's a little creepy. Okay.
Okay, so what makes a Red Hatter a Red Hatter? The number one thing is definitely passion. Passion for technology is awesome. Problem solving is important. But the thing about Red Hat is you can be passionate about like anything. So for example, Dahlia, excuse me, one sec. Dahlia majored in biomedical engineering, which she already told you guys about. And that doesn't really have anything to do with OpenShift directly or open source or any of the Red Hat technologies. But she was able to give a presentation on open sourcing the process of obtaining prosthetics. It was super cool. And then she's also like trying to get on projects that are in the medical field, just sorry, just so she can keep following her passion, even if she's not directly in that field. You can go to, and eager to learn. Obviously, being eager to learn is literally the most important part. We can teach you technology. We can teach you anything that you need to know, but like, we can't teach you that to want to learn. We can't bring that motivation to you, so you have to bring it to us. Okay, you can go to the next slide.
Go on the next slide. All right.
Cool. So what is consulting like at Red Hat? There are so many opportunities at Red Hat. The education, literally our first 3 months is all just training, teaching you everything you need to know from the Red Hat technologies to soft skills to get like everything. So for me, like coming out of college, going from paying to learn to getting paid to learn was like amazing. Truly the best thing ever. Then even on, so Dolly and I just started our first project, and it's like a 40-hour-a-week commitment, right? But my PM actually set up to where I can still study for 4 hours out of my 40 hours a week towards a certification. So even after you finish like the 3 months of training, you still get to train. You get to choose what you want to like learn. So I was doing one certification, changed my mind really quick, and I'm working on another one that's like a little higher up. So yeah, super awesome. Lifestyle at Red Hat, literally work-life balance is amazing. Okay, our project, the PM, so the project that we're working on has a team in Bangkok, and they wanted to schedule meetings with us at 8 p.m. our time, 8 a.m. their time. And our PM literally said to us, you do not have to go to that meeting. They can come to me. If that's outside of your working hours, you're welcome to go. You don't have to. So yeah, work-life balance, super important. Everyone emphasizes it. And then uniqueness, literally every project that you're going to go on has something new that you can learn. So it's not like you're sitting at a desk doing the same thing over and over and over again, which is really what led me to accepting this position, because I would be doing something new all the time. And even on projects, like if you have internal clients or like different teams within your client, then you can work on 2 totally separate things on the same project. So always learning, always something new, super awesome. And you can go to the next slide, Mark.
How do we get you there?
So yeah, I'm going to talk about kind of the interview process, what it's like, interviewing at Red Hat. And then I'm going to dive a little bit more into depth with the consulting launch program, which is what Kinsey, Drew, and I just finished. So the interview process. So what it was like for us may be a little different from what it was for you guys just because of the current situation, but I'll give you like a general overview of it. Round one, personally, what happened with me is I went to the computer science career fair and I saw Red Hat at the career fair. So I decided to go, and I saw the actual consultant, Red Hat consultant, was there. So I went up to him and talked to him, gave him my resume. And after that, he passed my resume along and I got my first interview. And that was a very relaxed interview. I remember I took it I was outside in the courtyard, and I just got to talk one-on-one with another Red Hat consultant, see what life is like at Red Hat, why he had joined Red Hat at the time being. And it was a very, very relaxed conversation. He got to know about me. That was over Blue Jeans. So that could probably be what you guys are doing. And then the last round of interview, so if you pass that round, it was kind of like a dual thing because they sent us a hacker rank, which you get a couple days to complete. And once you complete your hacker rank, we were flown out to the headquarters in Raleigh, and we had a full day of interviewing. I actually got to meet Preeti there, and a lot of other of the managers and some consultants that accepted. I met them at the final round interview, and that was, it was actually a very, very unique interviewing experience because it wasn't. You didn't feel very stressed out. It was very more relaxed. I remember when it was more about getting to know yourself and how your what your background is and how you can contribute to Red Hat. So overall, very relaxed process, and just being able to get to know about Red Hat and Red Hat getting to know about you. Next slide, please. So when interviewing with Red Hat, if you guys decide to do that, there are 4 tips that we could probably give you. The first one, this is probably the most important one, just be yourself. And I know that's super cliche, oh, everyone always tells you to be yourself, but no, actually be yourself. Red Hat is such an authentic company, and the people that work there are so authentic. They want to find a match for you just as much as you want to be a match for them. And that is first and foremost the most important, because you want to be happy with where you work. It's like a mutual agreement there. So just be yourself. Secondly, practice and prepare. I remember the first day of interviewing, they had asked what's open source, and some people didn't know what it was. And there are some basic things I would probably recommend looking up before, getting invited to these interviews. What is open source? What does Red Hat do? Who's the current CEO? Just, basic facts like that, but really nothing more than that. So yeah, that kind of leads into the third one. Do your research. You just want to go in well-informed, more about the company. Luckily, I knew about Red Hat because I was working with IBM during the acquisition, and I had worked with Red Hat products during my time with IBM, so I was pretty familiar with it. But I know that's not a very common, a common past internship experience that people have. So for sure, do your research. And then the last tip is just to ask questions. Going to this interview it's about learning about Red Hat, seeing if you're a good fit, seeing if that's the place you want to be at. So ask tons of questions. Everyone is so open to answering them, making sure that you are well informed. Even to this day, Kinsey and I, we just got off a call where we were asking our mentor just questions about this client project that we're on. So Red Hat is so welcoming to questions, and they just want to make sure that you're up to speed. And yeah, next slide, please. So just about the consulting launch program. So if you apply as a consultant and you get accepted, then they'll put you through something called the consulting launch program. And that's what us three. We just finished. And essentially what they do is they focus on 3 target areas. They want to first emphasize and work on your foundational skills. So that works on setting up your workstation, how to access the internal functions and features that Red Hat offers us, just like basic things just to get familiar with Red Hat and what it offers. Then after the foundational skills, and that's like the first 2 months, you get a checklist and you get things to do and just really familiarizing yourself with the Red Hat environment. The next 3 to 6 months is field readiness, and that is really a time of developing your network and enhancing your skills. So this time we were put in workshops, getting to know more about Red Hat products, experimenting with them, and just really getting to know more about Red Hat and what it offers, and kind of like seeing what path you want to go into, because even though all of us are consultants, it doesn't mean we all work on the same things. Kinsey and I, we were lucky to put on the same project together, but that's not a common, you can be put on any project, and that gives you an opportunity to learn new skills or develop new skills, learn new information. And so that's kind of what the field readiness part of the consulting launch program is. And then
Dahlia.
Yeah.
I just want to add really quick that the field readiness, you also get to shadow. So shadowing is like you're going on a project, but you aren't billable on that project, meaning you're just there to observe and learn. So you don't just go on your first project and you automatically have all these responsibilities and you have to know everything that you're doing.
Yeah, for sure.
That's everything Dahlia said.
Yeah, Red Hat, they make sure you're not just thrown out into the wild. They make sure you're up to date, what's going on, and always if you need support, they're there. And that's kind of Kinsey and I are there. We're shadowing, and we're basically transitioning to build your own brand, which is I guess it's the end of the consulting launch program, which is essentially finding your path, finding what you want to emphasize in. So earlier, Drew said that he was interested in OpenShift. Some people might choose to go into Ansible. The very first, or I guess the second certification that I got, everyone has to get the first certification, but Kinsey and I literally diverged on our second certification. I went more into OpenShift and she stuck with RHEL a little bit. And so you can literally pursue what you want, and Red Hat just wants to make sure that you're pursuing what you want so that you're able to learn about it and then eventually help a client out. So yeah, that is a general overview of what the consulting launch program is about.
Yeah, and if I could add one thing to that, I would say that this is very different than, again, your traditional company, right? Because I know I was between consulting and a traditional software engineering job, right? Because that's kind of what I was looking at. And I think Kinsey was probably looking at the same thing as well. So between those two, right, software engineering, you go in your first day and they're going to be like, okay, here's a Python project or Java project, go for it, right? Because you've already developed those skills. Versus at Red Hat, it's they really, really focus on you just kind of learning, right? There's no rush to get you out to a project, right? There's no rush. So you take your time, you develop your skills, you grow academically, you grow to be able to give presentations, you grow in different skills, right? And another thing is, as Dahlia was saying, right, it's not just in your initial CLP time, it's not just your, technical skills that you're building, right? You're developing a ton of other skills besides that. So I know for us, we had this time where we had to give practice presentations. We kind of had these networking, fake networking events, right, to just make sure we know how to network. So there's just a ton of different things that we did throughout the time, technically and non-technically, that really helped us get, or is helping us get to that build your brand phase.
Yeah, I second everything Drew just said. We also did before we even went on our first shadow or anything, we do a mock client engagement where some people volunteer to be our clients and we get to go through the whole process, even go out to a happy hour with them and practice how to respond to harder client situations, that kind of thing. I also just want to point out that It sounds like, while I'm hearing it, it sounds like cheesy and that we're making it up. Red Hat is legitimately like such an authentic, amazing place. Like, we're not kidding, and we're not sugarcoating it. It's real.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I literally just pinged Mark that I did not prep you guys to say any of this, and you're saying it with me here, so.
Yeah,
Well,
Preeti has no effect on this.
Yeah.
This is coming straight from us. You know, this is what we believe in, and this is joined, right? I don't think any of us would have joined if we didn't see this initially. And it starts with, I think, whoever was Dolly or Kinsey, whoever was talking about the interview at Red Hat, right? When you went to Raleigh, I remember again meeting all these CLP people, and I was like, okay, if I don't work here, if I don't get an offer, I'm gonna be so upset because this is it. Like, you know, you see that entire environment, right? And it's like something you immediately, and out of college, I think this is out of college, right? Like, rather than going into traditional software engineering job, coming into something like this where you can really grow and develop is much, like, I think the growth here and the growth potential early on, right, in your first, say, year or 2 years at Red Hat is much more than, you know, maybe some other places. So, yeah.
All right. So what's our next slide here? Oh, it's the angry duck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over to the Discord thing so we can see our cameras. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Yeah. And then we can see each other under cameras. Yeah, as the cranky old guy who's worked IT for years, the only problem you guys have as new Red Hatters is you've never worked for a bad company. So you might make the mistake of thinking the grass is greener somewhere else, and then you'll regret it for a long time. Red Hat has a lot of people who boomerang back after leaving. So
I've been here for 7 years, and it's still only been one company.
yeah. So at this point, I think we'd like to open the floor to the Stevens folk. Does anybody have any questions or comments for especially the consulting folk? I'm old. They're almost you guys' ages. You guys' ages. What do you think? Anyone?
I guess to add to Mark's point, if no one has a question, real quick, I can say that another thing, right, that differentiates us is you wouldn't see a lot of 22-year-olds talking to college students from other companies being the face of the company, right? That, again, that's just with, that resonates with our culture and our mindset. So just keep all of that in mind. And then I think if there are no questions, we can,
All right.
we have a few extra slides.
Well,
Mark.
So I know this. A lot of you, I think, are Josh's class. He's a freshman. Do we have anybody on the line who's a junior or older?
I can just message in the general hat, like, thing instead of talking if you aren't comfortable.
Yeah. No, we don't have red cultist robes, but I have so many free Red Hat pieces of clothing that it's actually unbelievable. My wife is like, "You don't need any more Red Hat clothes. Stop it. You're weird."
What's the coolest piece of Red Hat swag you've gotten?
The coolest piece of Red Hat swag I've got.
Or weirdest, whatever you want.
Ooh. Stand by.
All right, while he stands by, I think we got a question. I'm pursuing a cybersecurity degree. What positions could I get at Red Hat? You can be an associate consultant. Yeah, so, I mean, I'll take this one because Dahlia, Drew, and Kinsey, I don't think you know this as much, but so I'm part of the team that actually sets up and does the interviewing and all of that stuff and brings everyone into the associate consultant role. So we definitely take cybersecurity majors. We have a lot of security work to be done. We're cloud, right? So there's a lot of things involved in there. So cybersecurity is something that's very important to us. We do ask that you know how to code because there will be times when you're doing cybersecurity and coding kind of on the same thing, right? Setting up someone's cloud while also having to make sure it's safe and secure.
So
yeah, and go ahead.
So let me point this out. By the way, I'm wearing my actual fedora. I'm not kidding. Everybody who comes to Red Hat gets a fedora. Did you guys get them yet, or was COVID a problem? You should have your fedoras.
We got them.
Yeah.
They came with our laptops.
So when you're actually a new Red Hatter, you walk through RDU, the airport, wearing your fedora, and then whenever I travel to Red Hat for Business, I'll see like the new guys in the airport, and I'll go up to them and just like high five. I'm like, "Welcome to Red Hat," and they're like, "Oh wow, who's this weird guy?" So the hat's one of my favorite pieces, but here's two pieces that I particularly like. This is a champagne flute that was sent to everybody at the company when RHEL 8 launched, our last Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and we had a company-wide virtual toast using this stainless steel champagne flute. So that was pretty cool. These are actual Red Hat fortune cookies, and I don't even remember what the reason was, but they're honest to God fortune cookies. You can kind of see in the camera, and they're probably stale by now. But yeah, legit Red Hat swag. So those are two of the more unique pieces of swag I have that are Red Hat. But those are and here's my RHEL 8 Magic 8 Ball, fully functional with arbitrary random answers to questions. Now, Shrub. Oh, God, I can't say your name, and I think that's on purpose. The other thing is, at the Hat, we are very mobile. Once you get inside, we encourage you, if there's a position that you think you'd like better. I mean, being a consultant is probably awesome, but if there's a position internally that you think you'd be better at, you are encouraged to apply and move into it. We have a whole InfoSec group that specializes in like dealing with exploits, helping the engineers write the security patches, educating customers, doing all sorts of stuff around InfoSec. I mean, it's security is a huge enterprise thing, so we have a whole group for that. So yeah, you could come in as a consultant, but then you could actually work for the InfoSec group with C. Rob and his Securicorns. The Securicorns are awesome. The guy who got me to Red Hat, I actually knew him at Merck. He started as a TAM just like me, technical account manager, but he actually got kind of tired of that role, and he had always been a developer at heart, and he finally just got a position in the high performance or performance tuning team, and he's happy as a little clam because he's doing what he actually went to school for. So the idea of coming in at a certain job and then being encouraged to discover something that you might like better, and you move into that's very common. That's a lot of people's stories at the Hat. Yeah. All right. Yeah, and thank you, Kipnop. I think what we should do...
We don't have any other...
Go ahead.
Sorry, we have those other slides talking about like the Red Hat Academy.
Yes, let's look at them.
That I think would be...
Yeah, so I probably have to share my desktop again. You can see these on the Twitch stream, but not on the... Yeah, here we go, Red Hat and open source. Go live! So going back to sharing it. Yeah, and it's just in a window now. So here we go. So this is what you're talking about, the Academy curriculum?
It's loading. I'm assuming you're on the right one. Yes, that's it.
Yeah, I'm in ghetto presentation mode. I'm not going back to full screen.
So I guess a lot of you guys are freshmen. If you're interested in Linux and Red Hat in general, I'm not saying that you have to prep for a job here for the next 4 years, but if you want to get involved, Red Hat Academy is like when we partner up with the university and give you guys like free classes and help you like get acquainted to different Red Hat technologies. If you look at the slide, like these are some tasks that you can take, and if you guys are interested, like let us know and we can start setting that up for you. It's a process to go through, but if, just let us know.
So let me point something out, because I went to Rutgers a really long time ago, but I hung with ComSci students. I goofed off a little too much.
Anything you want to say about it?
This stuff that's on this slide, this is like real world stuff. Sometimes what your computer science department is doing, I mean, I'm sure it's great, but this is what real companies are doing in the real world, these courses. So this stuff would go well with your more formal education as well.
Oh, yeah. So like RH124, RH134, DO180, like a lot of those courses we take in the CLP program. So like it's real stuff, it's applicable, you can use it. Even like especially Linux, you can use outside, like even if you don't go to Red Hat. It's 100% useful with any technology career that you go into.
Yeah. If you're not using Linux already, why aren't you?
Yeah, and I could say like putting something like this on your resume. So say if you decide to take this class, once you take the class, you can also go for certification. So they are 100% performance based, but nevertheless, they really do test your skills, right, to make sure you are actually, you can go out. So for the containers Kubernetes, right, they'll make sure that you can actually go out and deploy an application into Kubernetes or OpenShift, right? So putting like a Red Hat certification on your resume, right, will not only help you get internships and like a full-time job, but also develop so much confidence in you as well, right? Knowing that, hey, I've mastered OpenShift. I'm really good at containers. So, if I'm good at this, I can learn anything, right? Tackle the world. So I think that's very beneficial as well.
All right. So we got another fun slide here.
Sure.
We're kind of doing a little bit of this already. Personal paths to Red Hat. I want to point out something unique for you Stevens folk. Pretty works in the Manhattan office, and I visit there once a month when we're not in the middle of a Stephen King global pandemic. When we're not having a pandemic, we have the New York Red Hat Users Group. You are all invited once those start up again. We always have some sort of a technical demo on some topic. We provide food, we provide beverages, we provide adult beverages. I'm not going to say I won't card you, but whatever. I'm just going to stop before I get myself in trouble. The point is, we're one path ride away from you being able to start to network, meet Red Hatters, and it would be a great way to jumpstart a career. And I can say that with confidence because Pretty almost hired one of my daughter's friends, but his visa was wrong. She was so excited, and then he had the wrong visa. So you guys, your location is ideal because Manhattan's one of our primary sites in the United States. So we will, I promise, what I will do is I'll give you guys the meetup link where you can join the Red Hat users group. And that way you can attend the virtual meetings if you want. But once they go live again, you're all invited to party in Manhattan with Uncle Mark and Pretty and everybody else who's there. Drew will probably be there too, I think, right? Because you're in Edison. Yeah.
Yep. Jersey base. Yep.
Jersey. Yo. What exit? All right. Very good. I grew up in Jersey. I'm allowed to make fun. All right. But yeah, different personal paths to Red Hat.
There's just this.
Go.
Just informational. You can go to the next one.
The next one. The fun links.
Yes. Yeah. So if you guys are interested, we can give you a copy of this.
Oh, they're getting a copy.
Like PowerPoint.
Well, it's a Google slide.
So you'll get this.
You'll have all these links.
Yeah, same thing. PowerPoint. Yes. All of our LinkedIns are linked there. If you want to connect with us, feel free to reach out, message us, whatever. If you have any questions, want to talk about anything, just want to chat, let us know. All of the links, you can check them out. But if you don't do the Red Hat Academy, there is a free Linux course that you don't have to go through Red Hat Academy or get a subscription or anything, just to get the basics of Linux if you're interested. And I think that is all we have for you guys.
That is all the slides. Yeah. All right. Does anybody have any final questions or commentary? I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Stop streaming so they can see my pretty face. All right.
I see what you did there, Mark.
Yes. Very good. Well, you've been a quiet crew, and that's okay, right? But we're delighted you decided to spend some time with us this Thursday night. This is the beginning. This is not a once and done. This is an ongoing relationship. So feel free to reach out to me. I'm on Discord a lot because I'm a nerd. Feel free to link to us on LinkedIn. I actually have gotten a couple of LinkedIn requests already, so I'm humbled. Thank you very much. And like I said, I'll put the information for the users group. And we look forward to like helping to build a deeper relationship with Stevens. I think it's a natural fit. Priti, why don't you take us home?
I mean, I thought that was a great wrap up. Yeah, thank you everybody for joining. I think it's because I didn't talk enough, so Mark just wanted to have me say something. This was great. If you all do have any questions about the consulting launch program, getting into Red Hat, any of that, please reach out to any of us. Thank you to the speakers for doing all of this. We're really excited to see you in Manhattan, hopefully soon. And yeah, great to have you all.
All right. Stopping the recording. Thanks everybody who joined us online.